everybody. Happy Aloha Friday. Lucky we live in Hawaii. And the purpose of our Friday Live going out on all our social media platforms is to hopefully bring something that's helpful information to our viewers and listeners. And Adrian, who do we have with us today?
So our guest today grew up in the city of San Francisco and earned a degree in architecture from the College of Environmental Design at UC Berkeley. In 1986, he moved to Honolulu upon graduation and began apprenticeship, gaining experience in master planning, luxury residential, and resort design.
He has lived in East Oahu for the past 37 years and is married with 4 children. His firm was opened in 1991 with the idea to take on a limited number of projects so that he can be personally involved in every design from start to finish. Please welcome our guest, Kris. Is it Eiserloh?
Eiserloh, that's correct.
Okay, all righty. And Adrian.
I just want to, so Kris and our team got connected in regards to, I think we had sent out an email about one of our luxury listings, and he was so helpful to give us some feedback as far as some things that were changing in, with the laws in our community. So thank you for, number one, thank you for subscribing and, getting the emails. And number 2, thanks for, coming from contribution and educating us.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And I've been very actively involved in Shoreline properties over the last 35 years. I've designed many, many homes throughout the island, pretty much on all sides of the island. And in the latest several months, new laws have come about that are deeply concerning for oceanfront property owners. They involve the increase in a shoreline setback. It's going from, right now, it's 40 feet. And as of July 2024, it'll be increased to 60 feet, plus a factor of 70 times an erosion factor. But for all intents and purposes, that means it will be increased significantly.
Wow.
So that's kind of what I want to bring to attention today.
From 40 feet to 60 feet. And this is coming into law in this month that we're in, July, right?
2024.
July 2024.
Yes.
So,
24.
So in 1 year from a few weeks ago, new laws will set a minimum of 60 feet.
Okay.
They're saying that the hardened shoreline of the, urban core will be 60 feet, but on other areas, it'll be 60 feet plus 70 times the erosion factor, like I said. And just kind of a quick calculation, if we think of an erosion factor of 1 inch a year or 2 inches a year, let's say 2 inches, we're at 140 inches. I mean, we're adding over an additional 10, 12 feet. So we're looking at potentially 70 plus feet for many properties. It will even be more significant in areas along certain coastlines that are more severely impacted. And they set a maximum of 135 feet, which is usually deeper than somebody's lot. But there is a minimum a minimum footprint that they will provide for the owner of 1,500 square feet. So, but it will impact everybody's oceanfront property, both in what they can build and their property value. So that's another big factor that is coming, but that's a whole different issue.
Well, the question I have for you is 40 feet, 60 feet, 135 feet. It's just like GPS. If you want to get somewhere, you got to know where you're at. How does the average homeowner that's on the ocean front, what are they looking at is like, where are you starting that measurement point from?
Yeah, so the measurement is started from the certified shoreline, and that's typically the vegetation, the start of the vegetation growth, although not always, but the state will certify it. But the important, the important thing to know is that you're losing minimum 20 feet of buildable area from your property.
Yeah.
And shoreline properties, you might know the value more than I do in terms of price per square foot. But if we use $1,000 a square foot, I mean, we're losing $200,000 minimum right off the top. But it's more importantly, we're losing that 20 feet.
Yeah.
And that's really the most significant factor.
Yeah. And, what happens? So this is good for you to know and to be advising your clients moving forward with new construction or building or starting a brand new project. What about people whose homes are within that setback?
That's a great question. Yeah. So all the new properties that have within that setback will be considered non-conforming. So the new laws that nothing's absolute right now. They're still finalizing the administrative rules, but the rules that are on the books right now talk about a 75% of the value of the home can be done over 10 years. So if you do have repairs that are over that, you cannot have that. You cannot get that permitted. If you're even further up from the shoreline, like many homes are, into almost to the 20-foot setback, the law is at 50% of the home's value over 10 years. So not per year, but it's over 10 years. So it's going to be very significant. Even if you want to build a swimming pool, let's say, which is typically what a lot of owners put on the oceanfront, you're not going to be able to put that swimming pool in that 40-foot setback. So really what I'm trying to, alert the owners today is there is a small window of time that they can take advantage of the current rule. The window is closing because the time it takes to get permits, as we all know, is a lengthy process, and especially on the shoreline, where we have to go in with what we're calling SMA permits, minor or major. We have to get certified shorelines, and we also have to get building permit plans done prior to the July 2024 date. And so that's really what I want to alert owners to now, is that there still is time. But
so Kris, with this these impending changes and how long permits can take, I would think that this would qualify under like an emergency. Could they ask for an emergency permit to kind of streamline the approval so they don't miss this window?
Yeah, well, it would be considered an emergency if you're a property owner. I would agree.
Yeah.
And this would
from DPP's perspective.
Yeah, this would include owners that are thinking about doing something in the future. Maybe they want to add a swimming pool, like I said, to their property. Maybe they want to add a cabana. Maybe they want to renovate their house. Mm-hmm. It's not just for new construction, although that would be probably the most severely impacted. But it's for all oceanfront properties to be aware that their opportunities to do anything on their property are closing within that 60-foot setback very shortly. Yeah.
So if they get the permit approval prior to then they're good to go, so long as they don't take 20 years to build the construction.
Yeah. So to clarify, they have to have the permit submitted by July 2024.
Oh, submitted. Okay.
But it should be noted that you do need to have an SMA permit prior to submitting a building permit. Yeah. In that time. And that's where the time frame is constraints come into play, because SMA permits can take 6 months to a year or more. So that's the urgency. And I should say,
even if you're just thinking about it, just submit it so that you have that documentation. And then even maybe you decide to sell your home in 3 to 4 years, at least you have that permits in place for that next owner. Will it transfer to the next owner if they want to,
Yes, it will. Yes, the permit would be good for about 2 years, the SMA permit. The building permit would be, maybe it's a little bit more complicated, but I'm working with a client right now that has a home that he doesn't really want to do anything with immediately, and he's also potentially thinking about selling it.
Yeah.
And his idea is that if he gets the SMA permit now for the sale in the future, the value would be tremendous, because right now what's going to happen is homes that are built on the ocean within this next year, or I should say permitted within this next year, are going to have a tremendous value compared to older homes, right? Because this is going to be a brand new home that's going to last for decades, and it'll be non-conforming, but it will be permitted and legal.
Nice.
And so the older homes, once July comes around, you can't do that much to them, you know, and their value is going to significantly decrease.
Yeah.
And of course, vacant lots.
You can't do much to them. What would be like the minimum kind of things to just, I guess, to maintain the home? Like, what would you say could be done if they miss this opportunity?
Yeah. So again, maintaining the home within that 40-foot setback, if they're at 40 feet, the building department is allowing you a percentage of the replacement value, 75%
remodel cost.
But that's over a 10-year period. So I mean, you know, if you need to remodel things that are more than that, they're not going to give you a permit.
They're not going to give you the permit. And SMA is special management area. Is that correct? I Googled it.
That's correct. It's a special management area, and what we need is a special management assessment permit. And there's two types of those permits. There's a minor and a major. A minor is for projects that cost less than $500,000.
Okay.
And those are fairly easy to get. A major is something that is kind of going, you have to have almost an environmental assessment, and you need, you know, and the big challenge with those is if you have to do an archaeology survey, it's costly and extremely expensive, and you might not make the time frame for your permit. So like I said,
you discover a grave or some bones.
Correct. And if you find something like that, it would be almost impossible to make the time frame.
Yeah. Well, so I think they get the SMA, and then they get their permit done at DPP, and then if they're looking to increase value and then sell it, then they get the LA from Team Lally, the listing agreement.
That's right. And I would tell you, just kind of vacant properties are probably going to lose the highest value come July 2024. If they don't have a permit right now, they're going to lose 20 feet of their land minimum. If you're on the North Shore, or if you're on the east side, or more the North Shore, and kind of on the La EA side or the windward side, where the erosion is more significant, you're going to lose just a tremendous amount of property, 70 times the erosion rate. So you might have a property that's 10,000 square feet, but your buildable area is only going to be 1,500 square feet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's a big difference. Important for buyers representing, buyer agents representing buyers of oceanfront property, and sellers. I think for a matter of disclosure, you probably want to disclose that, because I'm sure it's going to be, just like when Haleiwa, when homes are falling in the ocean, I'm sure that this thing, as it gets closer, is going to go on the front page of the newspaper and will become more and more common knowledge, besides just our live streaming here.
So Kris, like you mentioned a couple areas that have high erosion. What areas are you seeing like the least amount of erosion, or like that will be the least affected by this whole situation?
Yeah, and so right now they're calling it the urban core, basically Honolulu problem. Any hardened shoreline walls, and again, I don't want to get into the political factor of it, but it seems more political that they're doing it for the urban core as opposed to the rest of the island. However, they still are implementing a 40-foot setback. So I had given testimony at the city council wondering why a property sitting on a cliff in Portlock, 50 feet above the ocean, was having a 60-foot setback imposed on it compared to a property on the North Shore with the close to the beach, like you said, with the erosion, right? And they didn't make any real distinction between the setback. They just basically made a 60-foot minimum, bar any circumstances of your floodplain, your topography, anything. So
the elevation from the ocean made no difference. It just
means no difference.
It's just a blanket statement.
A linear distance.
It's a linear distance.
Yeah.
Right. And so, again, these laws are coming. There are groups, I will tell you, I want to inform you that there are groups that are trying to combat this law, but they're not, they're not really trying to fight it in terms of what you can do in the next year. They're really looking at, can we get some of these laws reversed, maybe in 3 to 5 years. It's a long fight, an expensive fight. There's a lawyer that I can give you his name later, but he is signing up neighborhood groups to form coalitions and to try to influence the legislators to change the laws.
I know Augie T. He's city council in the Eva Beach area, and he had some strong opinions about some of these changes, especially for people that just don't have the resources.
That's right.
And it's
maybe some of these houses that are right on the beach that's been in the family for a long time, and the property may be worth a lot, but the income of the local families is not there to support.
Absolutely, and those are the people that are definitely most impacted, because an SMA permit, just for a general kind of fee structure, you're looking at $60,000 to $100,000 or more. Wow. Just to do that permit. So that's why that they do have the option, like I said, of an SMA minor. And I do have strategies on how you can kind of work within the rules and attain searching permits on your property that aren't as expensive and can you might have to get multiple permits over several years. And that's a possibility. But ultimately, again, my strategy and recommendations to any property owner isn't to try to fight the city, but to try to, get grandfathered in.
Yeah. And that's excellent advice. And I would encourage any of our viewers or listeners to reach out to Kris and come up with this, specific strategy for your situation. I mean, clearly you've thought this through and had many clients that you've helped.
Yeah.
I have several projects now. I'm working on 3 SMAs.
Okay.
We just received approval for one. We have 2 others that are going in, and these were projects that were not ever, they were started long before these rules changed. So we were not in an urgent mode of getting things done. But I will tell you, and the rules have changed for the SMA process, I should say. It used to be a much longer process, but there's a Bill 42. So there's Bill 41 changes the setback law. Bill 42 changes the SMA rules. And now the SMA rules can be expedited, or I should say the SMA permit can be expedited, but the actual information that you need to get the permit hasn't changed. So that still takes a lot of time. For example, the shoreline certification. It might take you 6 months to 9 months or a year to get a shoreline certification. That you need the soils report. You need, all these different, the topographic survey. You need, all these things take months. So when I say there's a year to get the permit, it's not a lot of time with all the information that you have to provide.
Yeah, and this being the month of July, where the clock is ticking already on that 1 year.
That's correct. And I will say that is going to be certainly there are many people that are aware of this law now, and there are acting as fast as they can to get their permits. And so there is going to be like a backlog that's being created now in the department. And not just the department, the available people that can actually provide the SMA report. They're getting busy. They're getting to the point where they can't take on more projects. So that's another part of the urgency. If you want to get your project, I don't personally write SMA reports, but I work with consultants that do, and I know that they're getting very busy, and they're not going to be able to complete their reports before that timeline.
Well, just like when we're talking about anything interesting or of value, it goes by real quick. We do want to encourage people, if they have more questions, to give you a call. I'm sure you'll take an initial conversation or a consultation with people, right, to kind of talk about where they're at?
Yes, absolutely. I always would love to help people out. And this is a law that has really been frustrating for me, that it's being imposed as it is without me a lot of thought. And so I definitely want to help people out to
give them a heads up.
Give them a heads up and at least give them an ability to get their plans done and keep their property value. That's the most concern, is that they're going to lose so much property value.
Well, we hope they watch the show instead of getting a nasty love letter from the DPP, the notice of violation. And again, if anybody has any questions, give Kris a call. There's the number, the email. And thank you so much for bringing this to the attention of our viewers. We appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Really appreciate being a part of this conversation.
All right. Thank you, Kris.
Okay, thank you.